welcome to another live broadcast brought to you by Premier's Turning Point, which your host, Bishop Dr. Uton Lane, and co-host, Overseer Franklin Williamson. We pray and hope that something that is being said today will bless your soul and spirit. Please take a quick moment to like and share this broadcast with your friends and family. Thank you again for joining us. Let's go into our live program.
Blessings, and good evening, one and all. It's awesome for us to be back with you on another episode of Premier's Turning Point. Remembering that Premier's Turning Point is about giving you information, up-to-date information, and, raising some interesting and private thought-provoking topics that we are addressing both in the church, in the society, in our different communities. And that's really what we are about. We've been talking the last week about the different disparities, especially in healthcare. Today, we're going to continue talking about that, a little bit more slant though to education and employment aspects of it. We still want to remind everybody that we're in the midst of the COVID pandemic. I, for one, got my first shot as well today. So we were encouraging everybody just to, be cognizant of what's going on. The pandemic is not over. We may see some improvement, but keep in mind that we still have to be vigilant. And I know there among the African Americans, there's still a resistance. So we just want to let you know that, so far it's been relatively safe. Yes, there is reactions, but nothing that we did not expect. So we're going to continue talking a little bit today. I thank God my co-host is back with me today. So at this time, I'm going to open up for him to make some opening remarks. Go ahead, Overseer.
Yes, we want to thank your viewers and thank our listeners. Here we are again, another weekend to provide you with some information. And we are focusing primarily still on the vaccine, accessibility to the vaccine. And as Dr. Link says, there is still a high level of hesitancy among the African American people. And I believe just once we educate our people, then they will actually make the right decision. Still encourage you to talk to your primary physician. Make sure he or she advise you based upon your medical history. And once you get that advice, take heed to the advice. I know they will direct you properly. I myself had both shots of the Pfizer. And yes, there was initial reaction, but, at the injection site, there was tightness. But after 3-4 days, that tightness has subsided. And so far, I am doing well. So thank God. So tuned in, share, subscribe, like, let your friends know that we are live right now and they can utilize the platform to send us any questions on the topic of vaccine and accessibility of the vaccine. We hope that after this program today, you will learn and be educated more about this vaccine. And then, as you know, there's a third vaccine that the FDA just approved, the J&J, Johnson & Johnson, which just requires one dose, and requires a lot less ice or refrigeration. So stay tuned. We thank you.
Thank you. Just before we go into talking about some more disparities that we see in the African American community, it's a good point just to update. Yeah, we do have the third vaccine just about to be approved. That vaccine works similar to how the flu vaccine works. If people are concerned, is more an adenovirus related media that gets it into the system. It's not an mRNA like the other two, but this is a technology then that has been there quite a while. So like an attenuated virus that is into the system that brings in this protein that tells the body to make these specific antibodies. So it's a system that we've been using for years now for as I'll do the flu shot. So because it's that kind of system, it does not need the refrigeration at that low temperatures. And this is a one shot. From the studies, it may not be as efficacious, but it's as effective, however. It's still almost 100% as protecting against the disease and, the moderate to serious disease. So, it's still going to be quite well to help us fight against this, because the more people that are protected, as we talked about, will be getting closer to that herd immunity where the virus won't really have the medium to replicate in, won't have, and therefore we're going to come out of this much better. So, get, everybody out there, and we really are open for any questions you have, any concerns, any issues, with potentially, taking the vaccine, because I know there's still some hesitancy out there. So we're very open for answering that. I will answer her, and between me and overseer will answer everything very openly, with concern for you, because we know it is an issue. Don't get us wrong. We know that there's people are hesitant for a reason, because of things that have happened. We talked about it on the program about all of the various experiments over the years, and then therefore people, and even in terms of the disparity, then people are wondering, well, why do they want to give us this thing? They want to hold everything else back from us. Why? But I think you need to think of it more in the sense that this is going to help us to come out of this, and then we should hopefully get back to some kind of normalcy. So that's a good point that you brought up, overseer. So we just want to make sure we echo that. Yeah, you can echo it a little bit more, and then we'll move on with it.
So this third vaccine, as Dr. Ling says, it's not as efficacy, but they're saying it's effective, right? And
yes,
the big plus is it doesn't require that high level of refrigeration, and it's pretty much one shot. And because of that, it's portable. And again, now America has 3. If you want to use the word weapons, to really fight against this disease. So don't be fearful. Don't be fearful. Do the research, and we are here to provide you information that we have vetted and looked at from the CDC and from the organization. And we're pretty much here just to educate the community. So.
And that's the important point is that I think the more people that get vaccinated, the more likely we're going to get out from under this pandemic. Now, there's, just a little bit of talk. There's a talk about the various variants that are out there. Yes, they are. But the good news is most of the available vaccines are showing pretty good efficacy even against the variants. And the other thing is, if you are protected against the major strains, then you're less likely, your body will be more likely to fight off even some of these other variants that we're seeing. So we want to, as quick as possible, to get everybody immunized. Thank God, I know nobody in New York, but in New Jersey, the supply is slowly opening up a little bit better. So we're seeing they're opening up the big mega centers, and I think by next week, all the centers should have all the amount that they need, which would be a good thing, and therefore everybody should be able to get thing. I know in New Jersey, where most people can register, or if you didn't register with the state, and then they will let you know when it's available. I know initially, my time had come up, but then there was a big far going way down south to get it, so I kind of waited. Some of the bigger churches also are running sites. I just got mine today at one of the big Baptist church in our area. So their list kind of free up quicker. So just go online, register with the state. You can also register with pretty much all the major pharmacies. Even though you're registered with your state, you can still register with the pharmacies, and they will, you may get a little bit quicker. In New Jersey, they have bigger sites. You can actually register with the site directly as well. So you just got to look out there and see, so we can get everybody immunized. And I think it's going to be we're going to have a much different time by this time next year, because I think if everybody is immunized by the summer, by fall, then we should see a lot better. I think we're still going to have to wear masks for a while to kind of still prevent the spread, asymptomatic spread. But I think we should be coming out, we should see the schools open up and everything coming pretty soon if we keep up on this pace. And I think that kind of transitioned us into the topic we've been talking about is the disparities that we see in healthcare in terms of, the delivery of care, the access to care. We've talked quite a bit about that. But also, there's other disparities that we see, and they are actually kind of all related because, one, leads kind of to another. We're going to talk a little bit, and since our overseer is Mr. Education here, we're going to talk, let him, talk to us a little bit about, in the educational system and some of the disparities that we see, and actually ultimately what we can do about it. Okay, overseas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's very challenging in the educational system. And let me speak specifically to New York City. As you know,
Mhm.
the Chancellor of New York City just resigned, and his reason for resigning was that at least 11 of his close friends and family members were directly affected by this COVID-19. And he felt that he needed to take some time off to really grieve and to really be of support to his family during a time like this. With that said, just on the eve of announcing where middle school, grade 6 through 8, can return to full in-person education, full in-person instruction. However, the fine print to that is it's not every child that will return. It's for those parents who opt in. And it's about 60% have opted in to return to the classroom. And what we are finding out is that as much as our mayor declare the schools as one of the safe zones, but we still have the educators, the teachers, who are not signing on readily to be vaccinated. There is still a high level of hesitancy. And of course, some of the educators also have underlying issues. And as a result of that, now there is a teacher shortage, right? So if we have to divide the class and make them smaller size class, you still need educators to educate the children. So the problem is compound. The problem is compound. And then you got the union who is also advocating on behalf of the educators to make sure that all educators are vaccinated. And yes, they're on the priority list, the 1B, phase 1B, and but still want to make sure that they understand all the side effects. Yes, they have heard of folks who have received the shot, some died, some had adverse effects, but just to educate our people. We spoke about if you contracted the virus, what is the time lapse before you should take or should you take the vaccine? One of the things the vaccine does is allow the body to create these antibodies. And if you are infected and you fight off this disease, then in your body you have the antibodies. And I'd love Dr. Ling to talk about the degree of antibodies and how long does that remain? Do we understand how long does the antibodies stay in the body? And as a result of that, those who contracted the COVID should not rush into getting vaccinated because there have been cases where they have been in on the shingles, there have been serious side effects. But in the school system, now that the 6, 7, 8 graders are in, there is also random testing. Again, parents signed up for that where the child will be tested randomly. And if that child is tested positive, then depending on how many, was that positive child was with a cohort or was that child spread across the entire building? And depending on the concentration of that, it will determine based upon the protocols if the school should go on lockdown for the next 24, 48 hours or should just the class be quarantined. So there are guidelines in place for that. But the goal there is to bring back the entire school, including our high school students. One may ask the question, what's the delay with the high school versus the middle school? It's just the behavior. It's just the behavior. Your middle schoolers are much younger and they're more homebound. The high school, they're more independent and they are more likely to socialize. Right, so they're working on educating the high schoolers. And as you know, the vaccine is only from age 18 plus. So even the colleges, the dorms are becoming an area of concern. And as a result of that, even the colleges have opted for the rest of the semester online learning. But we know from studies that online learning is not the best, We are seeing a slide. We are seeing an academic slide. And even right now, there's discussion about the regions. There's discussion about the New York State program, the middle school from third grade to eighth grade assessment, if that should be administered, usual time, April and May. So there's a lot of wheels turning. We just have a new chancellor. We look what she will bring to bear. And her goal, based upon her comments, is to get the high school open up. So that's kind of what's happening. Again, parents, you have the responsibility to, listen to the news. Also, make the decision based upon, your comfort level, right? There is no one that is making a mandate that your child must return, but even have a discussion with the family. Discuss it with your child. It's also a mental, emotional thing. The children want to get back into the classroom, but let's do it safe. One of the things we have done here, Dr. Lang, we have hosted Zoom meetings to educate the children how to return. There's quite a few videos out there, on Brain Pop and YouTube that is very kid friendly, right? And enable them how to go about returning to school, prepared for the regiment, take your temperature, social distance, wear your mask, don't share a pencil, don't share your book bag, don't share your mask, eat your lunch at the same workstation. So these little things, so therefore there's not a shock when they return to the school, right? There's not a shock. You are slowly warming them up to the idea of this new normal.
Yep, I think it's, it comes down to, with everything else, even as we'll talk about a little bit more, is really communication and education, so we need to really communicate, to the children, get them acclimated to what it is that is going to be the new norm and what they need to do. And having the parents on board is really a big part. And I think you made a good point. Parents, we got to get involved. We got to know, what's going on. And so we can model for the children and we can share with them, so they can really understand, how, first of all, how serious this is, how important it is that we do what we're doing so that we can then get ahead of this pandemic. And I think if everybody is on the bandwagon doing that, we're going to find that, after a while, it's going to become norm for us to do the things that we need to do. Because once everybody has been immunized, or a good 70+% of the population, we should see even even more drastic drop in the transmission, in on how bad the infections are, and even people recovery. We know we saw quite a bit of drop over the past about a week in the hospital rates, the death rate. All of that is good, but I think if we don't, keep vigilant, we may see back again an upswing in the tide, and we don't really want to see that. We want to keep, this thing moving, with everybody getting better and better and better. So again, education is very important, that we take care of this. And I think, to talk a little bit about the disparity that we see, where I think even when this pandemic, it is bringing it out, because, and you can speak to this a little bit after I'm done here, but a lot of the families that may not have access to the internet, to the computer systems, and to the various tablets and stuff that they need to operate in the system, I think they're at a disadvantage. And we're seeing a disparity in the amount that most of those are predominantly minorities who don't have the access, based on a lot of the same issues that we've talked with, the access, the financial disparity and all of that. So I don't know, how are they planning to deal with that in the schools, those kids who have not had access, and how they're dealing with that?
Yes, well, what they have done, with the federal funding from before administration changed over, they have procured, these mobile devices, right? These laptops, these Chromebooks, these iPads. However, they have found out that you may put the device in the hands of the family, but the other problem is connectivity, right? So they got the device now, but they don't have connection. During the lockdown of March, April, May, there was like a 60 day access to the internet, right? Which took them into the end of the school year. But after the school year ended in June, then August, July, pretty much those months, they had no access to the internet. So what I've been hearing on the Hill is that, there is a call upon FCC to talk to the ISP, internet service providers, to provide a basic high speed internet for all the families. So if that really happens, that would definitely work. But there is definitely a disparity. We still find that, our black and brown children are not able to get onto the internet. They don't have access to a printer to really print the materials, to do, especially the lower grades, to do the writing and the drawing and the coloring. So right there and then, and the libraries are not open, right? The libraries are not open. And if there are, there is a wait period because the libraries don't have even the large amount of computers for the volume of people that have need to gain access to these devices. So it's definitely causing that major education gap, increasing, widening the gap, and looking forward to see where, the government can step in, and even our churches. We spoke about that, Dr. Lang. If the church has broadband, right, maybe you're not open for service, right? But then open up the sanctuary for the children who don't have access to internet but have their devices to be at the sanctuary, to be at the church and get connected to the church's Wi-Fi. So I just want to put that out there for our pastors. I know we may not have, the midweek service, but here is how: do a survey in your congregation and even your local community, your zip code, right? And the few blocks away, and create an opportunity where you can provide value to educating our children.
Yeah, because I think, as we're going to talk a little bit today, there's still a big disparity in the educational system in general. And now compounding that is now the pandemic. And therefore, I am just, praying that God makes a way, because can you imagine those children, that some of them that are already behind are going to be further behind? I mean, and I think from one study I'm seeing, they're thinking some of these kids have lost a whole year or more in time. So we're going to have a whole generation that we're going to have be at disadvantage, because at the same time, everything is becoming so technical, right? Everything is
Yes.
becoming, so computerized. So I don't think we have a lot. So I think it builds us, and I think as churches, we can at least, start by those in our company, and as you said, in the local community, to see what we can do to, to help, to bring about some normalcy for people, and to help out where it's necessary. Because you're right. So, so you bring the fish to the people, right? You brought them a device, right?
Yes.
But you actually didn't give them the line so they could go catch some more fish, because they have no connection. And so
Yeah.
we are having a major problem. So I think, and think about it, if all of the churches, can be like the grassroots people who are looking out for our children, looking out for those who are at disadvantage, those both in your company and in the community, we can start, helping out to get these people back online, back in line, and back, on the way to get on the education that they need. Because trust me, if we keep on this, we're gonna have a major, yes, we have the pandemic now, but we're talking 4, 8, 16 years from now, you're gonna see the backlash of all of this, stuff, that interruption in education that was there. I mean, some of these, you remember now, some of these families are already at a disadvantage, and even in the regular school system, don't get them there in time, they don't have food to eat, all of that stuff. So now we really compounded the problem, and then we see, as you said, the gap just widens because the disparity was there to begin with. So we're really going to have to come up with some systems, and also away from us even doing our thing, we need to make sure we're talking to our congressmen or senators and our local ones, to make sure they are aware of the issue. I mean, the legislature can do a lot to help to right the ship and get things back in line. So I think
Right.
as the people, the ministers, and so I think, we can't shy away from being involved in the local politics of making sure that our people are covered and getting what they need. It's very important. I don't know if what you see over in New York here. I think there's definitely a need for it everywhere.
No, there is, and on top of the technical hurdles, we also have another major problem in education is students with disabilities, right?
Hmm.
Those students who have the IEP, educational plan, and
Hmm.
they need their occupational therapies, they need their physical therapy, and
Hmm.
they need their speech, right? All these services that they need that they normally would get in the school system, they're no longer
Yeah.
getting them while they're at home. So
Hmm.
that furthers and widens the gap, and they are more tactile. They want to be able to touch, to get up and move, kinesthetic, right? And not having the classroom environment already, they do have disabilities, and not having their supports which enables them, it just really puts them into a great disadvantage. So as you said, it's a 12 to 18 month gap. I've read in the Gleaner, the Ministry of Education in Jamaica, they're not doing graduations, right? So they're
Hmm.
looking at 1 year in pretty much not moving any child, reteach the curriculum. I wouldn't even say reteach. They're going to teach their
Teach.
curriculum, because
Yeah.
we had a year where they did not teach their curriculum. So these are things that are happening, and it's a novel, and they're trying so many different things. But as you said, we need the community, right, to come together with the legislators, and have these virtual town hall meetings and hear firsthand what are some of the problems, because yes, they can give the funding, but if the funding is not channeled in the right way, it will not impact the classroom or the child in a positive way. So
Yeah.
yes, don't be silent, be very vocal, and advocate for your family.
Mhm. Yeah, you remember now where over the weeks we've been talking, one of the main way that we're gonna, get things on a more equal keel is we have to stay involved. We have to be aware of our surroundings, aware of what is going on around us, and be involved. Remember, I told you, for example, to use that as an example when it comes to healthcare. We know there's a major disparity. African Americans, brown people are treated differently. Even in the emergency rooms and even in the various doctors' offices. And as I said, some of this is a result of what has just been done over the years. Same thing in the educational system. For example, I use this as a great example. When I went to college, I went to a community college first, and a lot of times, and I always tell people this: when you go to a community college, they're always trying to give you a lot of fluff stuff, and before you know it, you're in a community college 4 years. That's not what a community college is for. It's for you to spend your 2 years, get your 2 year degree, and move on. Now,
Yes,
uh, they have a system that they have and I know you can. I'm getting dating myself now. This is years ago, but they had an
yeah,
advisory system. So each college student had an advisor. The advisor technically had to approve whatever courses you're taking, making sure it's
yeah,
in line whether you're declared or undeclared major, and making sure. The first thing when I got to community college, they're telling me of all these courses. I said, look, I'm not taking anything that is not going to move me forward. So I said, you can give me a test for anything you want. Anything you're trying to get me into, I'm not doing it because already I'm done with high school. I don't need to come
yeah,
to college and do high school work. But see, a lot of people don't understand you have the right to speak up for yourself and do that. And so what I did, I decided, I saw what four-year college I wanted to go to. I know what courses transferred because my idea for going to community college is that I didn't have to have much expenses the first 2 years. So
yes,
I went into the advisor and I said, okay, here's the courses I'm taking. He goes, well, I am the advisor and I didn't approve them. I said, all right, what I said to him was, okay, if you're going to pay, then you can get to choose my courses. If you're not paying, you don't choose what I take. I said, as long as I can give you stuff that is within the curriculum that I am qualified to take, this is it. And all I need for you to do is to sign. Period. I don't need anything else from you. And so I'm telling you, do your homework. I mean, and that's what I will keep telling you. This is why I was saying education, understanding, what goes on is, and I think
Yes.
this is some of the things we have to do. Our churches, we have to, probably get some more college prep and, things going so we can, advise these students as they progress along. And that's just one example to show you. I mean, this person was ready to give me all these bunch of remedial courses that because most likely because of the color of my skin, that I think because that's color that no way I could have mastered these things. But listen, we are as brilliant as anybody else. So you need to know, where you are, where you stand, what you need to do. You need to do the research. Families do the research. Students do the research. Churches help them to do the research so they know what it is that they need to do. And when you go to these advisors, and even I know on the high school level, I heard a lot about this too, where these advisors, oh, you shouldn't go into that, you shouldn't do this. Forget these advisors in school. If they're not, helping you to move along, you need to do it yourself. All right?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
It want to sound like when you go to real estate to buy a house, and they're redlining, right?
I just told you the disparities of almost every area.
So
we see that.
Okay, you can buy a house in this neighborhood, but you can't buy in that neighborhood. You're like, no. My money is also green, right? So I should figure out like my house. So yes, for the education, they often want to do the remedial courses. It's all about money, right? If they can get you there for full 4 years, that's enough money they can make off you. But if they push back, then you could say, let me sit the exam and get the waiver. Right, and you get the waiver, and then you go right into the course that aligns with your curriculum. As you said, it's 2 years, right? It's a 2 year, and most times, if you graduate high school, then you have all the prerequisites that you need to just get that 2 year degree, and that 2 year goes towards your bachelor's, right?
Yes.
So then, when you do your bachelor's, you are pretty much not now a sophomore, but you are a junior, right? You're not a freshman. And then you do 2 years and you're done. So yes, so be your own advocate, right? Be your own advocate. The advisors will look at you as a norm and say, this is the track we suggest you go up, but do your homework. Ask for the curriculum, take a look at it, do your mapping and chart the roadmap for yourself and make a decision. Okay, here's where I want to be in 2 years, and here's how I'm going to get there. And if it means taking some course during the summer and double up, doing a summer and a winter course instead of just semesters, then you do that and stay on your game, because I know that is achievable if you put your mind to it.
Yeah, it's very important that you have the understanding and get as much information. I think that's the main point we're making. This is one of the ways we're going to bridge all the disparity gaps. You need to be aware and have the information. For example, I worked when I went to college the first 2 years. I worked probably full time. But you're right, summers. One summer, for example, I took Calculus 4 before Calculus 3. People are like, you can't do that. But I looked at it. It says one doesn't really matter or the other. So there's no reason you couldn't do it. And people are like, how can you do 4 before 3? Well, they said the prerequisite for 4 and 3 is the same, which was 1 and 2. So you see, and if you weren't thinking right, I would say, okay, well, I'm going to wait till the next summer before I can do 4. I got to do 3 because you need to get their proper information. Yeah. There was a question online, and I think the question is, and I think they slightly misunderstood what you're saying about holding the kids back. But let me put the question for it. Sure. Is the idea of not having graduation intended to hold the children back in class, or is it to avoid the spread of virus? Also, isn't it a good thing to avoid large gatherings? Yeah, so go ahead.
All right. No, well, the physical graduation, what have done last 2020 is they have done some drive-by graduations, right? Where They don't have the big auditorium and have the kids marching across the stage and doing the full pomps and circumstance. What
Mhm.
they do, pretty much, they pull up in the parking lot, all right, and they would actually pull up at the outside and they'll just pick up their diplomas and then they'll do the graduation virtually. So yes,
Mhm.
they graduated. What I was referring to is the curriculum, right? Where they felt that the students weren't taught the curriculum, so they're going to reteach, or should I say, teach the curriculum to that cohort again. That cohort again. So
And you were
it
talking about more
was,
grade, was more grade school up to high school. You weren't talking about
yeah,
college. Yeah, okay.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And
Number,
this was,
yes,
yes. And I think they're contemplating that some places in the U.S. This was in Jamaica, he was
yes.
referring to. But I think, this is one of the decisions that we're going to have to make. Did the kids get enough that we can move along, or do we need to do a part of it? They may have to do, some kind of testing, or what. They have to come up with something to see that they get the adequate amount of knowledge that you expect to get at a
Right.
certain stage. And I think one of my thought is, again, and I'm a little bit on the edge, but my thought is they should probably, instead of these 3 hours of school and all these 50 million half days off, once they get back in school, maybe for the first few months, then have to do a little bit more time in school, in class. I mean, I know that has its other issues, but I think once we're out of COVID, we have to decide, does these children caught up enough, or do we have to get them caught up in some way, shape, or form? So it's a lot that we're gonna have
Yeah,
to look
yeah.
at.
I mean, I know
Mhm.
they do like after school, but most times after school was an option. It was
Yeah.
also for remediation. But if
Mhm.
everyone pretty much did not receive the curriculum, then it may be where you alternate, right? Where you
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
extend the school day. I know that's going
Yeah.
to cost
Mhm.
more, and that's where the
Mhm.
funding comes in. It's also maybe contractual
Yeah.
agreements with the teachers, right? So there are quite
Mhm.
a bit of things to think about. But if we say we're putting the children's first, then
Mhm.
step back and look at it. This is a a different kind of year, right? We have never been, it's novel. So we will be doing things we've never done before. But at the same time, make sure it's safe, make sure we are compensating, and make sure the
Mhm.
students are indeed learning
Yeah.
and make sure we're prudent. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's very important that we have to go look at the big picture. And the one point that we have to make also, and for us that are African Americans and whatever minorities, you got to make sure that your children are not missing out, especially if they were at disadvantage to begin with. All right, you now have this whole the system that came in place that, and now if they don't, if they may be further disadvantaged, and therefore we have to really make sure that we stay vigilant and be assured that whatever plans and procedures and things they put into place, that it makes sense for our children, because otherwise we're going to even be left further behind, because they could come up with a system, and but because of your work situation and all of that stuff, you can't comply with that system. Then what are your children going to do? So I think the key thing here is get as much information as you can, keep your
Yep.
ears open, your eyes open, keep everything open, so that whenever their plans and decisions are being made, we are a part of it. And I think that's the big point that take home from today. With all the disparities that we see in healthcare and education, wherever we see it, one of the main way to fight against it is to have the adequate information, so you first know what's going on and you can call it out when you see it, because
Yep.
otherwise it's just going to roll by. Things are going to roll us by, and then come 20 years from now, we're going to say, well, what happened? Well, we know what happened. We didn't pay attention. So I don't want us to get further in any issues because of lack of the knowledge, the lack of paying attention, lack of being vigilant. And that's one of the reasons why we're putting out Premier's Turning Point, to make sure everybody is staying up to date and, watching out for what is going on. And I know Overseer is pretty sharp there, and he's going to help us to keep all up to date on everything. And that's what we're both here to do, to help you to be,
Yes.
well up to date. Right, Overseer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yes. So,
Yes,
Go ahead.
it's important, families, as we think about the disparities, and what I've also seen as a challenge. Your child will come home with a backpack and say, "Mom, Dad, Aunt, Uncle, here is my homework," right? And now that doesn't happen, and you ask the child, "Do you have any homework?" And the child will say no, and they tell you the ninth hour on Sunday night, "Oh, by the way, I did have a project," right? So,
Hmm.
and it's hard. So, because all the work is posted online, right? And many of our parents, as educators, I think we did a poor job and are doing a poor job in educating the family about technology, how you can best help your child cope in this new normal. Like, okay, how do you navigate Schoology? How do you navigate the Blackboard? How do you navigate iReady? All the different platforms that your child need to use. This way, you can keep and hold the child accountable. And so you get some type of alert, right? That homework has been posted, and you have it also in the palm of your hand, and you can have that informative discussion with your child because you know that they got homework. So here's another area with technology and software. I know there are many tools out there, but I've not seen a tool where it's consolidated, where it's concise, where it's easy for the parent to really have their handle on knowing what assignments and the progress of their child.
Yeah, I mean, and even in the written world where we're getting the homework, I think parents have to realize that they have to be part of this. We can't just expect the teachers alone going to do this. So we need a team to
Yes.
keep, because otherwise these disparities are going to continue. Because if you're not involved, say the system is not technically fixed to help you per se, there's difficulties, but then therefore you have to be even so more so vigilant to make sure your child is getting the work, they're completing the work, it's going back to school. Because that's the other thing. I've even when my kids were younger, the homework was done, but you'll get a call, well, they didn't get it, so what happened to it between the door and the bus and the school door? Something happened to it. But it's that type of thing. You have to stay committed as it to the betterance and the furtherance of your child's education, knowing that there's a lot of things that are fighting against your child getting ahead. And
Yeah.
so you got to stay vigilant, and then you have to help out in this fight by being there, noticing what's going on and following up on things. Hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
know you run
Get
into a lot of that over the years. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, get involved in PTA, get involved in the Parent Teachers Association board, and volunteer. Because it's amazing when you volunteer as a parent, they know your child, and your child gets some type of preferential treatment. Shouldn't
Mhm.
really, but they know
Yeah.
that this parent is vocal, this parent is active, and they
Mhm.
say the squeaky wheel gets the
Yeah.
oil. Right.
Yeah.
So parent study shows if you're more involved in your students' learning, they do
Mhm.
better. They
Yep.
do better. Don't
Yeah.
just set it and forget it. No, at this time in the child's life, they need this hands-on parenting approach and get involved in their education. They may not like it, but they will love you more later when they look back now and say, wow, mom, dad, uncle, aunt, thank you for investing these years in me, because now they are reaping the benefits.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really important, and I think I know those with younger kids, they may not notice it now, but as your kids get older, they will then realize the things that you were doing was all for their good. And basically, I tell you, teach them and be open with them about the world. Tell them the world that we live in is this is how the world is. I mean, don't
Yes.
be one of those who you're afraid to share with them the things that you've been through, the things that your friends have been through, because when we share those things, we're gonna preparing them that when they see these things coming up, they know how to act and how to react. And I think it's very, very, very important. It's kind of like the all of the issues we're seeing right now with the hate crimes against Asian Americans. It's amazing. All of these things are just sitting there in the back, just waiting for an opportune time. So we need to understand that we are one people, and we need to be looking out for one another and see what we can do. Start right at home, but let it spread out in the community, because you can see if everybody is looking out for the other person's good, then eventually we see all of this negative stuff is going to get passed by. And all of this has been around for a long time. Don't be afraid to step out and to deal with the various situations. I was
Yeah.
reading one article, even in higher education and
Yeah.
in work, there's been such an attack against affirmative action, because, people, you're almost like a backlash, and therefore, we have to be even more stronger, standing up for the rights and for the things that we know is going to be for the well-being of our people. And I am one of those who's for justice and equality for all. That's what we should be about. And
Yeah.
anytime we see anything different, then we got to speak out against it, right?
Right,
Yep,
right.
yep,
There's the injustice any place is injustice every place. So
yes,
yes,
yes.
be vocal and make sure all men are created equal. And
Hmm.
we are endowed by the powerful creator, right? We
Yeah,
just gotta be loving and caring. I mean, that's what the gospel is about. And
yes,
you know, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your
yes.
mind, all your soul. Love your neighbor as yourself.
So,
And so
hmm,
therefore, you know, we will definitely will make sure that we're not creating these havoc in the lives of our dear humanity. So I
hmm,
call, and I just want to say I applaud our educators, Bishop, because they too are on the front lines, and there is no
yes,
blueprint, there is no
yeah,
roadmap, and so
yeah,
many times they do get the backlash. But I think parents now are appreciating the work that they have been doing and have done, seeing now that the child is home, and they're like,
hmm,
oh my God, now I know
yeah,
what the teacher, the benefits of having the school and having a teacher. So every
yeah,
time you get reach out to the educator, tell them you thank them for their
yeah,
labor of love and for their work and for their patience, for their tolerance with your angel.
yeah. I'm telling you, it's amazing, now. And actually, that's another disparity that we see in this country. And actually, I think it's kind of across the road. Teachers are not compensated, for the job that they do. With comparative job. I mean, not to pick on our sports people, but they get so. I mean, yes, they're short-lived some of their careers, but the rate of pay for what they do. I mean, if you talk about guiding a young life into a responsible adult and giving them the things they need, how much is that worth, versus watching the game for what. But it's amazing how we have such a big disparity, and that's one of the things I think as a country and even the world need to look at, is how we compensate teachers, because they do so much. I mean, I know in New Jersey and some places, some of the teachers have to raise all their own funds to put things in the classroom, and
Oh
it's
yes,
crazy.
oh
It's amazing.
and that seems to be the norm. That seems to be
Yeah,
the norm.
yeah. But,
Supplies,
but wait,
bulletin board paper,
yeah,
printer paper, chart paper. I mean, you do get like what, 250 for the entire year?
yeah, yeah. But think
You
about
know,
it. First, we're not paying them enough, and then we're expecting them to spend their own money to give the supplies. I think something is drastically wrong with that. And I think this is something that, I know there's a lot of other issues up there in Washington that they're dealing with, but should be one of those. They should have some kind of a minimum wage for teachers, which is not the poverty line. It
yes.
really should be something needs to be done about that. I mean,
And they
what do we?
they also carry a big student loan on their backs.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Because
so
as being educators, they got to be educated themselves. So there goes
yeah,
a college, loan that they're carrying on their backs. So,
yeah,
maybe they're those who are educators should have a different interest rate, for their
yeah,
loans.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Or definitely also, even depending on, if you dedicate and really dedicate your life to teaching, does they should forget some of those loans. I think a lot of things need to change in this country. Because what we find is, if you look at the overall sphere of things, you see the rich just get richer, and
Yes.
they're in their own little echelon, so they can send their kid to a prep school. They can, do whatever. And the funny thing is, even in prep school, they don't teach these. They don't pay teachers well. They actually pay them probably worse than the
Oh,
public
yes, they
school.
do.
Come to
Put
think
them,
of
put
it.
them left. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So this whole system, we see so many disparity across income level, across jobs, across everything, and of course in every aspect. And I think we may talk a little bit more about it next week, or we'll see. We see in every aspect, in every society, and everything that's going on, there's such a major disparity for the African Americans and the minorities. And so I think we want, what I think an important thing to get out of the program is for us as parents to educate our children so they know what to look for. They know
Right.
what things to be an edge for, and they know to deal with it when it does arise. Because if we can fix some of this, I think in the long run we will see some equality and some improvement over the course of time. But I think it's really important that as we go before, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. You have
Mhm.
to be aware of what is going on and have that knowledge about it. You have to know what it is. And as we start, and I'm about to end, I want to really remind everybody to stay vigilant. First of all, we know the Lord Jesus comes first, and we're going to serve the Lord, but let the Lord lead you, guide you, stay involved with what is going on around you in terms of, so what for example, your kids in school, you need to know what's going on, what they're supposed to be doing, what they're doing. Are they being slighted? Are they getting the full education that they need? You have to stay on top of that. And those who are older, the older children and young adults, you have to stay vigilant. You have to, know your surroundings, know what's going on, know how people are treating you. Is it right? Is it wrong? Whatever, and be aware so that you can then, speak out or make a big difference or make a change. And especially in this pandemic, we again encourage everybody just to, stay sharp, listen. I still can't stress it enough. Still, right now, you should not be getting together with anybody, that is not in your own household, that you're having these big gatherings and all of that stuff. There's still a lot of that going on. We're still seeing a thing. As you know, for the churches, thank God there are numbers that wasn't cut, but we need to stay through the distance, the social distancing. We need to wear the mask. I'm a little bit overboard, but we wear a mask for singing, for preaching, for everything, because I think for me, one of the things that really impressed upon my heart is the time when you're more spreading, when you speak, when you talk, when you preach, especially vibrantly, you're really spewing things. And from the studies with that, it's going 15 and 20 feet. It's not just going in front of you. Then the environment and the air. So we really caution everybody out there. And, those people, and if you somebody in your household come down with a virus, all right, for example, you find out that today they're positive, you already exposed. So don't go quarantine yourself with somebody who's not exposed. You can, if you want to, I think you can, by that time you're exposed, then definitely even in your household, wear a mask, try and distance in the household, keep the person who is definitely positive, kind of away. But again, for you, you are most likely exposed if the person is being diagnosed today, Monday, you probably were exposed at least a few days early as well. So don't be thinking that because you don't have it at this day, you can then go quarantine with somebody who is negative, because you most likely are carrying the virus. Be careful out there. Remember, teach your children all the things that they need to know. Let them know the world that we live in is a little strange place, but they can get through it with the help of God, of course. Overseer, go ahead.
Yes, just want to, leave the last words on the hearts of the parents. Please take the education seriously with your child. They may not see the value now, but you as a parent, get heavily involved, get hands-on, especially since they're virtual, right? I myself find out that I got to, pull up my socks and be more involved with my daughter, as an educator. Make the assumption that things are being done, but if I don't go in and check over her shoulder, not literally, but get onto the platforms and see the comments and see what she posts and how she updates, and then give my own feedback, right? And don't settle for mediocrity. Let them know that excellence is what you desire. And as Bishop says, let them know the world you're living in. And education is one of the main ways to elevate. And so this is the opportune time for them now. Don't waste it. You can't buy time as you buy minutes, all right? Time is linear, and it is like lighting a candle and just watch the wick goes. So parents, invest some more time in your child's education.
Yep, and I think that's a good place for us to transition for this week, that we are, the Lord gave them to us, all right?
Yes.
And we are actually the ones that need to guide them. Now, again, don't get me wrong, they may not go the way you want them to go, but you need to put that foundation there.
Yes.
And don't feel bad if something, don't be afraid of being a parent. Your child, you love your child, but right now you have to have this most of the time some tough love and show them what is right from what is wrong. They can then, when they come of their grown age, they can make their own decisions, and they can decide to tell everything. They took everything you say and throw it out the window, even though they think they throw it out the window. Years, they'll come back and pick it up because they'll realize that what you're doing was right. But don't be afraid to, give them the truth, and also to hold them responsible for doing the things that they need to do. We are the parents, and, there's so much disparity in the world, in the country. And the way your child is going to, rise above that is for it being educated and being directed and have a goal and a plan. All right. Because then they will, and then, you're going to educate them on the system. This is a system that you're faced with. You have to, stand out there. For example, as I told you, in the healthcare system, I'm educating everybody I can. When you go into the system, if you just, go, all right, they're going to do what's right for that, you're going to come out of the end being sorely disappointed. But you got to advocate for yourself and for your children and such alike. So we want everybody to have a safe week. We'll be back with you next week. We thank you for joining us. We thank you for sharing with us. We hope you all got a lot out of this. And feel free to reach out to us on our websites, on our email for any other questions. If you have questions you want us to deal with, any topics you want us to deal with, just reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to do that. So thank you again. This is Bishop Dr. Lang and Overseer Franklin Williamson. We're saying good day for today. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Have a wonderful
Point family. What an awesome time we just had. To all our first-time guests, we truly appreciate you for joining our live broadcast. We would like to hear from you, so please send us your comments, questions, or testimonies of how this program has impacted your life. Our email address is info@pflmi.org. Finally, if you feel led at any time to give to this ministry, please visit us at pflmi.org and click on the tab for donations. You can also give via Cash App at $PFLMIORG. We're looking forward to meeting with you live on next week's program. Have a blessed and prosperous weekend.